Bread and Butter, where we are serving up the basics for Hearthstone improvement. This is episode 115, and I am joined as always by Pylet. Pylet, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tito?
I'm doing fantastic, and I have a special guest today. Some of them that have you ever been on a podcast before? We have Kira on, and you may not know the name Kira. You say, "Who's Kira?" Think of any time you've ever seen Sylvanas on as a cosplayer on Twitter or at a Blizzard commercial or anything like that. That's her. Kira, how are you?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Doing good, doing good. So Kira, what have you been doing inside of Hearthstone lately?
I have been working on learning how to use the imbue mechanics for the new hero talents with Hunter, because I main Hunter in Hearthstone, and trying to figure out how to make that work to my advantage, but not rush it. And working on my Tavern Pass, because I got to Nathanos, and that was my goal, and then I'm like, oh, well, I can't get lazy with it now.
Fair enough. So you mostly been just playing Imbue Hunter? Is that kind of encompassing things, or
Mm-hmm.
and how are you liking the play style of Imbue?
I really like it, because I feel like it gives me an objective with playing cards. Unlike hero powers usually do, I usually ignore my hero power and don't even use it, so this gives me a motivation to play more with that mechanic that I haven't really done much because I just ignore it and use my card powers.
Smart. Excellent. So Pilot, what have you been up to in Hearthstone?
Yeah, I haven't played a ton this week just because I've been busy, which I think I mentioned last week and talk about later on. So it took a few days off just because I literally didn't have time, and then came back as the dust was almost settling from the balance changes, and have played mainly the Cliff Dive Demon Hunter with Ball Hogs. That deck is really good. I added in the 7-drop Death Rattle. Listened to the VS podcast today, and he had mentioned that was showing a lot better than some of the other choices. Added that in, and it's just waves on waves of stuff that deal 3 damage pings to everything. So that's really good. And then I stumbled on a Double Frost Unholy Menagerie token Death Knight that uses Marrow Manipulator, which a lot of us weren't using, and that is very much my Death Knight playstyle. I really enjoyed Frost DK when that first came out, and it's just a ton of damage. I don't know how many times I would ping through a full egg Hunter board and still have stuff left because Horizon's Edge is an insane card. So yeah, I've been mainly playing those. I just finished my Legend Climb right before we started, actually, with the Cliff Dive deck, where I outlasted a triple blood DK. Ended up with a double Illidari Inquisitor hitting them for 25 or something in a turn, and slowly got there.
Fair enough. Now, when you say frost, imbue, dark, this, that, and when you say enough words at once, it's just I'm playing a pile of cards, right?
Well, yeah, that sums up a lot of decks that I like to play.
Yeah, all we're missing is black rock and roll, and you have the right kind of right kind of deck I like. I have been playing not as much this last couple weeks, but when I say not as much, I mean not as much for me. I'm still playing plenty. I have 13 to 15 Dark Gods played, and I've been stuck on that for a while, but I only have that much left for the final reward of that track, and I think it's done tomorrow. So we are probably Tuesday when the thing resets. So I will finish that, but I'm at Diamond 5. I'm at that place where now I'm kind of trying some new decks and messing around. I've been playing the Demon Hunter that I've been playing, that I've been really enjoying, which I know is not great, but you play a lot of Dark Gifts, and you play a lot of the Demon Seeds, whatever they're called now, Dread Seeds, and you play Sock Slither Sphere, Sock Puppet, and all those, and you have fun. I took out the bigger package of Omen, which I probably should have kept in just for that, but I felt like I never played them at all. I never got to that point. So as fun as that package is, my deck's not built for that. So we took those out, and we added the 3/3 that starts dormant for 1 mana, and that is a really, really good card. So you have to, it starts dormant until you attack once with your hero power, which feels like it's just a Demon Hunter card. I'm sure it can work in other decks, but it works out really well there. And then Ridiculous Hat reposted somebody, and I know they talked about it on the VS Report the podcast today because I listened to it. But I have been playing for a few days now the buff Death Knight deck, and that is right up my
Mm.
alley. I love it. I'm not doing well with it. Like I have long game. The games are long, and then it's like you win one and you lose one, and then it's like, well, that just took 45 minutes. So what am I doing with my life? So I probably need to play something else to climb. But I've been enjoying that deck, and we're mixing up a little bit, and we'll see what goes. This week, we did our first week of THL. I went 2-3 against Nobimity, which I was happy with. I thought I played pretty well, except for some mistakes at the end. And given that he was ranked 44 when I played him, I felt a little bit better that I took somebody that high up to 5 games. And Pilot, I believe you swept this week, right?
Yep.
Fantastic.
So somehow I somehow swept against a deck that I accepted I was going to lose a game to. I had 2 really bad matchups. So I'm like, I can only ban one of them. So I'm like, I'm going to say that the Demon Hunter has more of a chance to fall flat than this Control Starship Warlock. And I had really good draws. He did not for a couple games and got to take advantage of it.
Fantastic.
That's so fun.
So, Kira, what have you been doing outside of the game of Hearthstone?
I have been powering through finishing my Sally Waitman cosplay.
Very nice.
That's been a whole.
That's the lady from the Scarlet Monastery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, she's been in the works for almost 2.5 years now. Because I talked about working on her when I did that documentary with World of Warcraft. I was like, yeah, I'm working on Sally Waitman, and then I did nothing on her for 2 years. Everyone's like, all right, where's your Sally Waitman? And I suddenly got this like gun-ho to start working on it, and now she's like 99% done. So we're getting there.
if I remember that fight, at least as it was before they revamped Scarlet Monastery, I played since vanilla. It's like when she died, the other guy you had to get done in a certain amount of time, and if you didn't kill him, she resurrected or he resurrected and was a pain in the butt. So yeah, no, that was really good. I think there's even a Hearthstone. She is a Hearthstone card or battleground card, right? She's a battleground card, I think.
She's got a couple hero skins too.
Yeah, I know that there's hero skins.
Yeah.
Not sure for cards.
Yeah.
She got a cute Valentine's Day one.
Very nice, very nice. Pilot, what have you been doing outside of the game?
Yeah, so finished up the show that I was helping out with. I think I mentioned last week I got asked to help fill in kind of last minute for another area school that needed some help with their musical. So finished that. The last show was last night. So I have some of my evenings back. After we recorded last week, I talked a couple times. I've been trying to get into Lorcana and hadn't really found a store that had open play that fit with my schedule and people showing up. And I ended up stumbling across one last weekend to where they're a little bit more organized and do like a league style play to where you get points for showing up and playing and things like that to get promos and stuff. And funny enough, I actually knew 2 of the people that were there and had no idea that they played. One of them I went to college with. Haven't talked to him since we were in college, but when I was in pep band, he was the mascot. So that's how we became friends, and he was there. And then actually one of the parents for one of my students plays there also. So like, small world. So yeah, I got to do that. Played last weekend and this weekend. Last weekend felt really good because I was a new guy that showed up and I went like 3-0. And then today I didn't win a game. So that's how it goes. So just like my normal Hearthstone stuff, you win some, you lose some, but playing a lot of budget style stuff there just because I haven't built up enough of a collection of the really powerful cards. So I kind of have to tweak and throw in what I can. I had one deck that seemed promising today that has a lot of combo burst potential, but I need to explore it a little bit more to see if I can make it work with what I have or pick up a couple copies of cards.
All right, what I need you to remember is when you go to these Lorcana events, you say, hi, do you also play Hearthstone? Hey, yeah, me too. What's your favorite class? Oh, by the way, I have a podcast. You should listen to it.
So one of the guys that actually played today, he said that he had tried to get into it a couple times. I think he said it had been a few years, but he's like, I played a few games and just never really stuck with him. So we'll see. Maybe I can pull him into it.
Remember, we run an obelisk scheme here. We don't need you to we don't need you to tell 2 people and then have them tell 2 people. We just need 1. You get 1 person to listen. That's great. We're happy. Just say, hey, I like this. You want to learn how to get better at Hearthstone? They could help. Maybe a little. They're also, interviewing all kinds of people from the Hearthstone community. You'll learn a lot. So, let's do it. But I have a sad story. So if you don't like sad stories, skip ahead maybe 2 minutes. So I went home this weekend. I went to see, because live and work in Rhode Island, live in New Hampshire. The weekend commute happens that way, and I get home and get settled in, and then I had bought some stuff to grill on my way home because I wasn't going to make it in time to pick up my kid because I usually pick him up at school, but I had a meeting. So I was just short of being there, so I'm like, I'll pick up some stuff to grill. So I got my stuff and I'm headed out to the grill to do some grilling, and I see one of our chickens out in the front yard. I was like, huh, that's odd. I didn't think my wife let them out to, sometimes we let them out for a little while to kind of graze and then they go in the pen at night. And then I go over and I go look at the cage, and the door is open and the coop has been destroyed. And so the remaining, we think we had four more chickens besides that one, are MIA, and we don't know how it happened. It looks like it could be a bear, or either bear or bobcats, or possibly a person, but we don't think so because apparently some people steal chickens and try to make it look like it was an animal. But the bear somehow opened, whoever it was. I'm assuming bear, but they were able to take this door. Like, they weren't locked doors, but they had latches, and it was a latch, and they pulled it open. So it wasn't even like it was like a push. It was like a lift and pull, and I don't know how it happened. But we had chicks that we were gonna start raising and put out there and merge them and all that. But we decided that for this season, because we have to rebuild the coop and everything like that, that we brought them back and gave them back to the person we bought them from. I found my friend Justin, who I do Civ with on Friday nights. He also has chickens, and he took my remaining girl, and he has now integrated her with his flock, or his flock. Yeah, something like that. So, but it was nice of him to take in my lone chicken because we didn't have, the coop is all destroyed, and by herself it was no good. So it's kind of a sad little thing there. But we've had attacks before in the past, so this time around, if when we rebuild this summer, we'll probably have to put in like an electric fence or something like that around it like that. But my wife is all excited because eggs cost a lot, so we were going to sell the eggs on the corner and start raising some money and whatever. But unfortunately, just like doing gardening, people think they save a lot of money gardening, and maybe if you do it for a while, you do. But for the most part, it's like, hey, I just built a raised garden. Hey, I just did this. I just that. And if you add up the money, it's like, well, I actually lost like $500 on this. But if you have a garden in place and you've evened out those funds, like, what do you save? Maybe like, 10 cents, 20 cents on the garden. I'm not saying don't do it, but just let's be more realistic about how much money you're actually saving by raising your own food. What I want to do is I want to have one of those self-sustaining areas. Like, have you ever heard like everything you grow in your yard is something that produces food or medicine or something of some kind? So like everything has
Mhm.
a purpose. I think that would be pretty cool, but we're a long ways off from that. And outside of that, I took my kid to do painting today. The little you get the thing and you paint it and you put it in a kiln, like they put it in, you come back a week later and all that. So we did that today and that was fun. But I don't think we're not here to talk about that. And before we start talking about Hearthstone, we're going to talk about cosplay because why we brought Kira here. We are supposed to have her on a while ago and things. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. I have to go like travel the world, and I have a event that I have to go to, and then another event. It's like you're too popular." So I was glad we were able to lock you down today. So let's ask the basic question. How did you start doing cosplay, and what was your first cosplay?
So I was really into anime when I was a kid. And this was back in the olden days where anime was not easily accessible. It was like laser discs that you got off the black market kind of stuff. Um, but I was really into Sailor Moon, and I lived in North Carolina at the time. And for my 10th birthday, my parents got me a Sailor Uranus cosplay, and we went to this local anime convention. And I had a blast, and everyone was super nice to me. But like nowadays, you see more kids at conventions, but like back then, it was very rare to see people that young at conventions, especially cosplaying. Everyone was so nice, and I had such a blast, and it kind of opened up this world for me that now is to the capacity of what it is, an insanity.
Well, very nice. Well, so how did it go from a hobby, a thing you did as a child, to basically, I believe it's your career, right? So how did that transition happen?
I have no idea. It just kind of did. Because I did a lot of anime cosplays for a while. I did a little bit of Final Fantasy, and then I kind of delved headfirst into Blizzard Entertainment cosplay because I really fell in love with those games and the worlds. And a career kind of blossomed from that, I guess, because there aren't a lot of predominantly Blizzard cosplayers. So I kind of got into that niche, and especially like armor building and prop building and things. So it kind of became this really cool career I could have.
Nice. Now you really like when I see you like cosplaying like as Sylvanas or Jaina. I mean, you nail it. Like how are you? Was it partly because you like Blizzard and partly because like you just fit so well with the characters, or
I Blizzard was the first time I looked at characters and saw my face because I have a very not your run of the mill face. And like Sylvanas, Jaina, Nova from StarCraft, they were kind of the first time I saw more of my face in these characters because when you cosplay anime, you're supposed to look like you have no facial features. You look like you're 12 years old. And I got into a rut of like I don't fit that beauty standard. And that's okay. You don't have to fit that. It's its own thing. But when I discovered Blizzard characters, I was like, I look more like these people. And I already love them. So it was really fun to like lean into and celebrate the facial features I have and like the stature I have compared to feeling embarrassed or something about how I look. And I think that all kind of meshed into the what it's become.
all right, and that's fair, absolutely fair. But like there are many cosplayers out there, and like I mean, they have a contest every year at BlizzCon when they have BlizzCon for the cosplayers and stuff like that. But you have basically become Sylvanas and kind of Jaina too, right? Like so, like they call you when they need a Sylvanas and all
Hmm.
that. So how did that happen?
I have no idea. I think I was just really active on social media, especially Twitter. And I just kind of started to really invest myself in the community and get to know people and be like, this is what I do. What do you do? And I started to meet devs and things, and it just became this really beautiful community. And one day I got a phone call, which is insane, you know? And I'm very honored I get to play Sylvanas and Jaina. And like during Mon Disorder, we did a TikTok collaboration that was really fun, and I got to play Nathanos too, which was fun. They didn't know I had Nathanos. That was kind of a surprise. I was like, by the way, I also have him. So he got to make a little surprise appearance. But it's really cool, and I love these characters, so it means a lot to have the very rare opportunity to play them when they would like me to, you know.
Yeah, that absolutely. Now, do you also tell them like, "Hey, I have a bunch of other characters, so here are my character lists. If you ever need any of them, I'm available."
I think they pretty much know. They're like, if we need any other character, we can just hit her up.
Now, did you kind
But I think
of have like a companionship with Alkali Lake there, who was basically Valera before she was a Hearthstone uh, community manager and all that? Did you know her at all?
I unfortunately did not get to really know her very well. I think because we just ran the cosplay community is huge. And I started delving more into Blizzard more and more later, like as the last 7 or 8 years. And I started to know her and get to know her later on when she like right before she became the Hearthstone community manager. And that was the only time I kind of got to know her a bit more. But she's lovely, and I admire so much of her craftsmanship because like she is Valera. Like I'm obsessed.
No, definitely. So, what is as far as the events and things that you've done? You've done some really cool things. I think you were at a football game, and I know you do cons, and you were in at least one commercial for Blizzard. What's been some of the cooler things you've been able to do as a podcaster? Excuse me, as a cosplayer. Podcasters don't do cool
I mean,
things.
I mean, I have been flown all over the world and like country to just play dress up, which is absolutely insane. I mean, it was an honor to be flown all the way to Paris to be Sylvanas in a commercial, and like I got to be Sylvanas for Blizzard's holiday party. The football game, I got to be Jaina, and like getting to be a part of like I equate it to being a Disney face character, where you get to be a part of somebody's magic. It's really, really cool, because a lot of people love these characters, like any form of media, and getting to, like, interact with them in that way and make a special environment like that, because you're taking characters that don't exist and making them into reality, and you get to have these interactions with people. Is super cool. And I look forward to any other shenanigans I get up to, you know?
Now, do you also try to do the voices, or is it just kind of too tough? Or
Um, I don't do many of the voices. I'll do, if somebody asks me to do a voice line, I will do it, but I have such a different voice tone than a lot of them. So
yeah, fair enough. So you said you started off with anime, and you've kind of shifted to Blizzard. Do you still do any other intellectual properties, or is that kind of not enough time in the day or whatever?
every once in a while I'll delve into something, like I did Ida from the Owl House. I did a Fallout cosplay. Emma Frost, but kind of my love and joy comes from Blizzard Entertainment cosplay, because I've kind of built my community around that, and I love the, like, nice little fun we all get to have with that. So I don't venture outside very often unless, like, I really fall in love with a character or I'm asked to. Because it's a very special ecosystem, I think, and I'm very happy and content, and I'm constantly inspired by more and more expansions that come out, or Hearthstone cards that come out, or Diablo content, or new Overwatch heroes. So there's always something more for me to do, so I never feel like I'm bored. I'm like, well, I have to go find something else to do. I'm like, well, I've got a list of about 30 Hearthstone skins that I've done too. And the new World of Warcraft expansion came out, and I've got to finish all of those. And then eventually I got to do Overwatch, so there's no ever moment of, I guess I should do a different IP.
Fair. So I think a lot of people don't understand how much hard work and money go into building these costumes. So what's that process like to have an idea and start with it and then build a costume?
I get ADHD hyperfixation. Um,
I have
and if
that.
you are a cosplayer that gets that, to run it into the ground, or you will not pick that costume up again. You take it and you run. I am lucky enough that, because I love Blizzard properties, it's very easy for me to trick myself into getting into that hyperfixation by watching a lore video, or, like, a character being predominant in some form of media. And it just goes from, like, I have these are really cool cosplay, like, planners that I've started using to kind of keep my thoughts coherent. Is this one? I think these are both for those Sylvanas Hearthstone builds. But it kind of gives you, like, a space for, like, your projects, the cost and, like, time of how much time you put into your costumes, how much each, like, piece of it costs, like fabric or EVA foam and stuff. And there's, like, a event tracker and all kinds of stuff in here. But that helps a lot, because I did not used to do things like that. And it also helps me break down, like, I don't build a lot of my own props. I actually have somebody 3D print them for me. He and I do a lot of collaborations like that together, and it's a really cool, way to help out another person that wants to be, like, in this sphere of, they want to do 3D printing as their job with cosplay. So we collaborate a lot, and it's, like, figuring out what pieces I would like him to do. Like, my white main staff, he actually 3D printed for me. And I do the finishing work. While as I'm like, all right, so I'm building everything else for white main. Things like that. That's super fun. And it kind of just, then you get a nice 3 weeks of doing nothing else but building that costume, and then it's done.
So what was probably the most intricate costume, or and the most complicated piece of prop that you have made?
War Chief Sylvanas, that, like, statue accurate one, was a little insane, and I'm still tweaking it. She is predominantly 3D printed too, because we wanted her to be 1-1 accurate to that statue. And she was a lot of, like, I put other builds, I'll let little things slide of, like, this is a little sloppy, this is a little whatever. If you stand 5 feet away, you're not going to see it. Her, I'm like, you have to be up on that thing and think you're looking at the statue. I was so, like, particular about her, and it made me take so much time to make sure she's perfect. But if you go up to her, you can't tell the difference between the statue. and that armor. So
So, what advice would you have for somebody that's looking to either create their first cosplay, or they're very new to the space?
definitely find a piece of medium that you're inspired by, like an anime, a book, a TV show, a game. Find a character that you really love, and you can do something as simple as closet cosplay. Closet cosplay was really, really big when I was a kid because there weren't as many resources that we have today. We have an abundance of incredible cosplay resources to learn a little bit of everything. But if it's go to Goodwill and get something you think they would wear on a day off and style your hair, or do your makeup, or get a wig, and kind of learn what you like about cosplay. And if you have the funds and you want to go online and either start learning how you would like to craft, there's people like Kamui and Kenpatsu Cosplay that have these great tutorials out there, as a bunch of other people do as well. Or you can look up commissioning people to make your costumes for you if you just want to have fun and like wear them. There's a lot of websites online that have cosplays for sale. I mean, even Amazon these days, you can get a pretty decent costume for $100. So there's all kinds of avenues to kind of figure out where to start and what you would like to do, and kind of picking. I always say pick a really easy costume, go to a Comic-Con, and kind of see what this whole environment's about. And you're probably gonna fall in love. Like, it's a really fun sphere to be a part of, and it's gonna inspire you to do more and more. You're gonna see other cosplayers and like, oh, I want to do that next time. And it kind of snowballs into building that passion.
Okay, but now let's say I've been doing it for a little while, and I've got that passion now. What advice do you have for people that want to grow their brand or expand their reach, kind of like you have?
I think authentically loving something, at least in my case, was kind of where the success came from, and I use success in quotations, because I think I'm very grateful for where I've gotten to, and I didn't plan to be here, so I feel like I can't super speak on like planning to be successful. But all I did was really love something with my whole heart, and I was very loud about it. And still am very loud about it. But I think, networking is a big thing too. I just started learning how to network properly. I feel like a lot of cosplay opportunities were people reaching out to me. I wasn't doing a lot of the other side of it. It was when I started going to DreamHack that I started networking, which is an esports and gaming convention. I was like, all right, so if I want to work with XYZ, I need to present myself and be like, hey, this is what I can offer, and I really like your brand, so I would like to work with you. Which is a really scary thing to do, especially as a cosplayer, because a lot of brands don't know how to work with cosplayers at this point. So it's showing them we're just like any other influencer or content creator. We just also dress up in costumes. And it's kind of learning where your niche is, where your passion is, and building your brand off of all those things.
All right, fair. So, as a podcaster, people have the misconception that we're all straight white males about 40 years old, which is true. But what are some misconceptions people have about cosplayers?
I think the big one was something I touched on already, is that a lot of people don't think we're content creators. They think we're just people that dress up and we have no value beyond seeing us at Comic-Con, where we're a huge ecosystem you could market to and very easily use for marketing. As well as we're very passionate people in communities. And while online you can see a lot of sensationalized things about cosplay, for the most part, it's a very welcoming, lovely community full of creative people who have been rejected their whole life for being different, and we're a community that all comes together and kind of celebrates those things.
Nice. So, final question, unless I come up with another one before we're done. What is the character that you have yet to do that you want to do the most, and why haven't you done it yet?
I want to make Queen of Blades Kerrigan from StarCraft so bad. She scares me endlessly because she is just such an intricate build, and I want her to be perfect, kind of like Sylvanas, because I've loved her for so long. And every time I sit down to like figure her out, I get so overwhelmed and like in my own head about my own craftsmanship and abilities that I always talk myself out of it. But I would absolutely love to build her. at some point because I think she's so cool and so iconic. And I just love to bring her to life because I love her so much.
Well said. It's too bad you just didn't get it a little ahead of time because you could have got probably right into that Hearthstone
Mm-hmm.
mini set thing going. But maybe they'll have StarCraft too because everyone loves StarCraft and stuff. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure no one had any problems with the set coming out and whatnot. So everything went smooth and no one was ready for those to go away. I really liked a lot of the decks that they made and stuff like that. But um, anyway, I don't know how we transition to this now because I'm normally do the interview and then I say, hey, it's time to we have a whole new dynamic here. I say, hey, that was a lot of information, but I think it's time for the main course. I don't even remember. Pilot,
I don't
what's our
remember either.
what is our main topic today?
Yeah, so our main topic, we're going to be talking about kind of taking the next steps in your Hearthstone game. This is something that has been talked about before, that we're going to try to focus a little bit more on players who are maybe earlier on in their journey. I know when we were talking before the show, I feel like, a few months ago, talked about it with players like Big Banterface, to where, you're at the higher level and really trying to take that step. And we've talked a lot about the beginning skills. But what about for those players that's like, okay, I'm not a beginner anymore. I know I'm going to be playing this game. I have no idea what to do next. I'm overwhelmed. I've figured out all those things that I didn't know when I started. Because like most things, the longer you do something, the more you realize how little you knew when you first started it. As a teacher, I relate to that a lot when I look back at my first year of teaching and shake my head at how awful I probably was. And that's okay, because we all start somewhere. So as we take those next steps, we kind of get overloaded with everything that we feel we have to learn and figure out. And we try to do too much of it at the same time if you're someone like me who is a perfectionist or overly competitive. So there's a lot of things that you can look at, and I'm sure that you two can probably think of things that I've left off this as well, such as, you're trying to learn how to maybe build decks. You're trying to learn different styles of decks, how to go through matchups, how to plan out your turns a little bit better. And, if you're trying to do all that at once, it can get very overwhelming very quickly. So how can we advance our goals while not getting overwhelmed? And that's what we're going to try to talk about a little bit today. So to me, the first step in doing that is deciding what kind of player you're going to be. And that's not aggro, control, mid-range, if you allow us to use that word on the podcast. I know that's, yeah. But, are you going to be someone who is mainly playing this very casually? You're going to play a few games a week, don't really care what your rank is, win, loss. It's just something fun you want to do. Or are you trying to be very competitive later on? Or where do you fall in between there? Because that's going to kind of set those goals for yourself. And that's, totally personal and, depends on who you are as a person. As I mentioned, I am a very naturally competitive person. Always have been. Probably comes from being the oldest of 5 kids at home. So yeah, a lot of, competition with, among me and my brothers growing up. So I wanted to always push and see, okay, I like this game. I know I'm going to be playing this. How good can I get? And that kind of led me early on to, figure out what I wanted to do. And that was learn a deck that I knew was good. Because when I first started playing, I built my own decks. I had a lot of fun with that, and they were awful. They were so bad. For those of you who played in Ashes of Outlands, they introduced a lot of the no minion mage stuff, and I was drawn to that deck, and it was so terrible that year. It was awful until they printed more stuff the next year, and they had to nerf everything because it was busted.
Kira, what kind of player do you think you are? As in kind of how we're talking.
I think at this point I'm an intermediate player where I want to learn more of deck building and like how to properly plan my turns. Because I would like to get to a competitive point with self-confidence because there aren't a lot of women in esports. So I would like to get to a competitive level with Hearthstone and get to participate in things like that. But I think it's going to be a lot of like sitting down and really learning those mechanics and really thinking about what I'm playing instead of just going for it and being like, yeah, this looks like a good idea. Like I put that meme on Twitter that I'm like, oops, I didn't really think that through. Like sitting there with my little cards and my little hero portrait, like, ugh.
That's better than what I do sometimes. Is I think things through and I have the right thought, and then I do something completely different. So,
Mm.
I would
but
never call you out on that.
well, you need to
Never
call me
once
out.
said that, Tito.
You need to call me out on that more. Absolutely. But if you're trying to learn to get a little better at Hearthstone, hopefully this is the podcast for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if you're listening to this, you're probably in that space. So with that, when you're trying to take that next step, important things to remember, it's going to take time and you can't expect to hit new plateaus quickly. And in order to take that appropriate time, you probably want to pick one or two things, maybe that overlap, that you can work on at the same time. That way you're trying not to overwhelm yourself. So I've broken these down a little bit that we'll kind of talk about, individually, broad scope, and go from there. So I feel like one that comes up a lot early on as players get better is deck building. Where we have so many resources now with all the different websites of HS Replay, HS Guru, Vicious Syndicate, Hearthstone Top Decks. You can find decks anywhere and you can just plug and play, go, and you don't have to worry about it, which is fantastic. But if that's something you want to get better at, that's a really hard skill to kind of sit down, especially if Hearthstone is your first, card game. If you're coming from a background of another one, sometimes that's helpful, but it's still a little bit different than some of them. So if you're trying to learn deck building, I found for me the easiest way once I wanted to get better at it was taking the decks I was already playing and were pulling from other people and trying to figure out what were the purpose of the cards in the deck. Find the synergies, find, what is the purpose of this package? This card looks really weird. Why is it here? What role is it filling? Because sometimes, depending on the deck you're playing, it's not very obvious. And for me, I jumped straight into Galakron Rogue as my free deck when I started playing, which was not the easiest deck to just grab and play. I found out later on is a very competitive deck, but there's a lot of nuance to it, which probably shaped how I play now. But trying to look at it and be like, why are these cards in the deck, and figuring it out, because then you can start to experiment. Well, what if I put this card in? This card kind of fills that same role. What if I try this out and make those little deck building swaps rather than swapping out 25 cards right from the get-go? Because then you kind of get lost and then you don't know what's good because everything kind of breaks and crumbles apart.
Yeah, playing 0 mana cards, really nuanced, real hard.
Well, getting there. There's a couple versions of that deck.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. Yes, and I also agree. But I think one thing I've thought about doing recently is when if you want to get better as a deck builder, which I do, obviously, since I've been trying to make things like Black Rock and Roll and Rye and whatever, Warrior Work and whatever. But maybe a good approach would be to try building a deck, try it out, and then look at a deck, like say, hey, I know that hand buff Death Knight is a thing right now. So don't look at it. Maybe try to build it yourself, and then compare what you built to whatever the meta list is, or one of the meta lists are, because there's usually more than one, and then see what the differences are, and then you can say, well, does this make sense? Maybe you found something new that people haven't thought about, or maybe you can realize, oh, hey, yeah, I had Omen in the deck, but it's way too slow given everything else, and that a lot of that comes with practice and playing the decks, and then seeing the results. Like, hey, do I ever play this card? Do I ever win when I play this card? And things like that. So, Kira, do you like to build decks yourself? I know you said a little bit, but
I feel myself getting overwhelmed a lot when it comes to building decks, and I think sometimes it comes from I'm missing cards, and then I get overwhelmed trying to get enough resources to craft those cards for myself, and then I get one, but then it breaks my deck. So then I'm like, I don't know how to fix this, and I spent all this time getting this one card that I thought was going to be helpful. And I used to play Magic the Gathering. I am a recovering Magic the Gathering addict. So, and building decks for that all the time was a whole thing. And now translating it to Hearthstone, which is very different, but similar, has been interesting because I feel like more often than not, I'm missing a card and then I break the deck, or I insert it's very. I had one really good deck that I built during Hunter Spaceships, and then I had to give that deck up, and I will be sad about it forever.
I think a lot of times most cards are replaceable. Like if you can find a similar-ish card, or you don't even use, but like if you're playing Omen Shaman, you kind of need Omen, right? So otherwise, otherwise deck no go. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and I feel like especially with Hearthstone being 30 card decks, the lists are a lot tighter to where, if you can't fill the role that card's supposed to do, it just doesn't work compared to if you have, a 60 plus card deck for another card game, and, I didn't play Magic, but so when I'm learning Lorcana, I'm having to learn how to use my cards as a resource to be able to play my other cards. Something totally new to me because I didn't play anything like that before. And now I'm seeing it's just like, oh, it's okay in this 60 card deck to have stuff that is just resources. I'm like, yes, I'll play it if I need to, but I need to have something that I'm willing to give up to be able to play my other cards. Where Hearthstone doesn't quite have that same thing outside of balancing out your draw cards maybe. I've also found when I started building decks, jumping in, if I'm starting from scratch, jumping in from something that's very synergistic from the get-go, a tribal deck like an elemental deck or a murloc deck, because then you kind of have rails that you're able to be guided along. And then you're only working on sorting through, I know I want all the murlocs I can get, but what are the good ones that I can play? And what are the other just generally good cards that would suit this archetype? And that's a real, I think, easy way to kind of jump into that mindset of it as well.
Keep in mind, you don't have to be a deck builder to be good at Hearthstone.
Yeah.
And a lot of people never make their own decks. They just pilot their decks, no pun intended. So yeah, it's deck building's fun if you want to do it and you want to learn it, be ready to lose a lot of games and it's okay. But if it's not your thing, that doesn't mean, like, you don't think, hey, I have to learn how to deck build if I want to be a good Hearthstone player. There's some people that say things like that out there, but you just ignore them because they don't know what we're talking about.
I'm good at ignoring people like that.
Yeah. So I feel like the second thing that comes up most for what people want to get better at is they're planning out turns and trying to get better at that. And if you're in that boat, you are not alone, because everyone all the way up to High Legend will probably say the exact same thing, just to a different degree as you kind of, like I said, you learn the things that you don't know. I feel like, I've heard so many people say, I need to play slower. I need to think before I play my cards.
I'm feeling called out here.
It's okay. So
me too.
So these are all the things I say to myself also. Coming up with multiple plays that you can make on any given turn so that you can decide which one is the best one. Or if you have started doing that, now can you think of what you're going to do the next 2 to 3 turns? Those are very difficult skills to build because it's something that obviously doesn't come naturally to most people, or else they would just do it. But it also requires a lot of focus, which sometimes when you just want to play a video game, you don't want to focus, and that's okay. That's where knowing what your goals are at that time can guide you to how you want to be going through this. But turn planning is definitely one of those things to where I think that's the biggest step to try to take from one level to the next.
And I think it's something that goes along with, so a lot of people, you can look at mulligan guides and that helps you kind of get there. But you also have to remember that you have to look at your hand and plan out your turns. So you may have like 2 good cards that you could keep. Like a good example right now, I would say, is maybe playing what's the 2 mana guy give you a dark gift?
Creature of Madness.
Creature of Madness. If you have a Creature of Madness and you're planning on probably playing whatever you get from the 3 mana card, the Creature of Madness, if you have a 3 mana card in your hand that maybe you don't want to, normally you would keep if you didn't have a 3 mana play, but you're probably going to play which you get off of the Creature of Madness, then maybe you toss that card back. Maybe you don't, depends on what it is. But it's those kind of things you want to think about. And the other, like when you also are planning out your turns, like you may say, hey, I could actually play this, but then what does that mean if I play this turn? If I float a mana, how am I going to do things next turn? What does that next turn look like? So the other thing too is you have to be flexible. So you may have the plan, I'm going to play this on 2, this on 3, this on 4, but then your opponent does something and then I need to react to that, or you draw a card that can drastically change your plans. So don't feel like you have to be locked into a strategy that you have figured out, but be flexible and be ready to switch if it makes sense. And you may not make the right choice, but think about why you made the wrong choice or the right choice and go from there.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the hardest things for me is figuring out what cards to mulligan. Because I'll sit there and be like, okay, I have 3 cards I can play consecutively. I got a 2, 3, 4. But I'm like, but these cards might be useless to me, keeping them in my hand because I don't have things that they can react to at this point. And it's like figuring out the balance between, well, what if I mulligan and I get 2 9 cards and a 1, and I'm sitting there with nothing in my hand. I've done that. I've gotten the Wild God and King Plush and then like a 1 mana card, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm sitting here until something happens. I hope my opponent enjoys the free hits until I figure something out.
And it's not always about the mana cost too, because like right now, I've been playing a lot. Like I said, I've been playing a lot of Demon Hunter. You don't keep Jump Scare in your hand. Cost 2 mana. You could play it, but the result of that is a card you play for 5 mana. And yeah, that card's going to be very good, but that doesn't help you at the beginning of the game. So playing that is just going to slow you down and not allow you to react to things. That's a reactive card. That's kind of like where am I in the game right now? I have 3 choices of demons. Which one is going to best help me in this situation? And on turn 2, you don't know that. So it's not just about the mana cost too. It's about what that card does and what's the situation for that card or that set of cards. And sometimes it's not like, so I used to never keep, this is going in the Wayback Machine a little bit, and I don't even remember the name of the card, but it was one that gave, I think, a minion. It was a paladin card, so I should know it. But it gave a minion +3 and you +3 or something like that, or with Divine Shield. It was one
I
of
know
those
what you're
ones.
talking about. The attack card.
Yeah, and I never used to keep it because I always wanted to wait until I had the weapon, the Wind Fury weapon, to punch him in the face a couple times. And then we had World 8 on, and he was like, no, or he was either on here or he was on my stream, and it was like, no, just play it on 2. Like you have a Divine Shield minion because I think you had to play it on Divine Shield minion, and you do that, and now you're threatening a 5/2. Yeah, maybe you're not getting all the attack that you wanted from the weapon, but who cares? Like, get that tempo, get that pressure, and when you start thinking like that, like, maybe I wanna keep this card, maybe I don't, I think that makes a huge difference. That helped me. I got a lot better after I started thinking a little bit more like that.
For Kel'Thalas is the card, by the way. I had to look it up because it's bothering me.
Oh, that's fair. That's why
Oh.
that's why we have you on the show, so I can bother you with the things I can't remember and you figure it out.
Yes, because you know that it will bother me if neither of us can remember the name of the cards. But yeah, the mulligan is always, I think, one of the hardest things to figure out for a deck. And a lot of that comes because you have to play the deck to figure it out. To where once you get 10 to 15 games into a deck, normally you can figure out what the most powerful card is. You find out, oh, this card is broken in this deck. This is the card that I need to see if I want to win more often. And 9 times out of 10, unless that card costs like 6 or more, you're going to keep it in the mulligan because that's your power play. And then trying to figure out what it is from there. I always fell into the trap of overkeeping cheap discover cards. I didn't know what I was going to discover with them, but I'm like, oh, that's cheap. It gives me something to do on that turn, but it doesn't do anything in the moment. And that's a trap that I fell into for a very long time, unless it was a very specific deck that I had to do that with.
Like Creature of Madness, because that gives you a very targeted discover, so that makes sense to keep.
Yep. Yeah, and it's at least a minion on board compared to like a primordial glyph for mage. It's a 2 mana that you get back on the spell that you discover, but if you don't know what you're looking for yet, why are you playing it on 2? Type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And in the school of
what my hunter cards are like.
Oh, good.
I feel that's a lot of my hunter cards I have in my deck right now is very much I'm searching for certain things. So I'm always like afraid to not have that in my hand because I'm like, but I have to search for this eventually so I can keep imbuing my hero power.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm afraid to mulligan instead of keeping the search that I have a chance to get what I need.
And that's a hard mindset to get out of, because yes, that's what I need to complete my game plan, maybe, but if I'm dead, it doesn't matter, right? So you need to do the things to keep yourself alive, and that might not be holding that card. Maybe it is, but probably not. It's probably you don't want to keep King Plush in your hand because I know you want to start imbuing that guy and get him down cheap, but you need the things to get you there, and that's just one other card you can have.
So cute.
Oh, I want that so bad. That's so unfair. She's got that King Plush. Yep. Someday we'll get in the creative program Pilot. Someday. But one other thing on what you were saying, and it's in the notes here. We kind of glossed over, and this isn't a do as I say, not as I do. Slow down. I play way too quickly. Like I have my plan, and I'm pretty good at making the decisions and then knowing that, hey, I just drew a card, my plan hasn't changed, and I go click, 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 done. And, try to put my opponent on the back foot kind of in some ways, but you have plenty of time to think about your turn. So a lot of times, I forget who gave me this advice, but it's make your decision like on what you want to do, then come up with an alternate play. Is your first play better? Okay, you do that, but at least try to think of something else that you can do on that turn and figure out how it might affect the game.
It's definitely something I'm like, I gotta slow down. Because so often I will play something and then look at my hand and be like, I'm stupid. I should have done this. And if I took 30 seconds or 5 seconds to look at this, I wouldn't be dead now. But my brain also gets in that, like, all right, I got this plan. I'm not going to diverge from this plan. Even though the other thing happening could be even better. Or I just misclick things and heal my opponent. I do that.
The worst thing that happens is, especially on stream, is I will say out loud the things I need to do correctly in the order I need them to do correctly. Yet I will then play them out of order, because then I'll be like, oh, I didn't do the hero power. And then I lose by 1 and they heal by 30 and I'm all upset. So yes, there's all kinds of stuff like that we can work on.
Oh yeah. And it happens. It happens to everybody. I'm someone who I normally play fast. That's just me. But it's because I'm thinking of what I'm doing on the opponent's turn if I'm not being distracted by watching TV or a video or having a cat that's walking in front of me like I have half the podcast so far. So, I'm someone I normally play fast, but I've also played a lot of decks that have made me think fast. So that has kind of helped me to where there are some of these things that we talk about to where some decks, those rules kind of go out the window. I was very big into Naga Mage for the couple months that they allowed that to exist. And that's not a deck. Once you got to turn 5, you couldn't think. It was just go and figure it out. And that is a deck to where sometimes you keep some of those weird discover cards because you needed an answer for something that wasn't running your deck. So there's always exceptions to the rules, but generally, as Tito was saying, I know that I'm pretty sure I took that from someone on Coin Concede. I can't remember if it was Hat or Wicked Good. Probably both. Come up with a plan A, then come up with a plan B and try to talk yourself into why one is better than the other. Sometimes it is plan A, sometimes it's plan C that you didn't think of until you started talking yourself into it. And then you're like, oh, what if I do this instead? And that's where slowing down and take the time to figure that out is always the best thing to do. And then following it up with doing things like looking at your replays, thinking through a game of, I think I made the best play, but I'm not sure. Let's go back and look at it. What other things could I have done? Oh, that would have happened if I did that. or finding someone else who's willing to watch them, or someone who's willing to co-op with you. So I know Tito and I have co-opted a few times, and those are some of the best times to figure something out, because you're getting two very different perspectives of how to play the game.
And on one more, do as I say, not as I do. Don't do your moves and click end, because there's so many times you're gonna have, oh, I forgot to attack with my hero. Oh, I drew a card that I could have played and that would have changed the thing. I do this all the time. I go click, 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 end, and I'm like, whoops, I could have played that card that I just drew. So it goes along with taking your time, but even when your turn's done, just give it a sec, give it a beat, make sure. Again, preaching what I do. Don't do what I do. If you come to my stream, you're gonna see me do this. You can yell at me for it because I know I'm not supposed to be doing it. But yeah, just slow down and then let the turn resolve before you hit end. Because worst case, the rope goes boom and it's their turn anyway. So you're fine.
Yeah. Or always look for the color. The end turn button turns green when you can't do anything else anymore. That's my go-to. I'm like, why is this still yellow? Am I supposed to be doing something else? Oops, I forgot to attack with that minion because it didn't take my click. So, all right. So, or sometimes like, okay, I have an extra mana. Oh yeah, I'm not playing that card this turn. So, use the colors to your advantage. Hearthstone is very nice to you in that way. It's kind of like the cards that have an effect in hand if you do something else and they glow yellow most of the time. So, look for the right color.
Like, hey, shiny.
Yeah. Other two things that kind of mentioned earlier, kind of feel like they go a little bit in the same direction, so kind of to lump them together a little bit. But that's learning different decks and also learning matchups, because I feel like I have to do a little bit of both to be able to do both of those skills. If you want to learn a different type of deck, a lot of us, when we start playing, we kind of just find something that looks fun and shiny, and we jump straight on that deck and find out if we like it or not. And sometimes we do, and that kind of sets our play style for the rest of the game. But if you're wanting to be more competitive, you're going to have to play something other than aggro, insert this class, or whatever it might be that you were drawn to. So, and a lot of times that just is where go to those deck list websites, find something that looks intriguing. It might be something similar in a different class, or it might be something within the same class that maybe is a totally different play style, to where if you mainly play hunter, finding a slower hunter or a faster hunter, depending on what you normally play, different things like that.
If you say you're playing a deck against a deck you're seeing a lot, and you can't figure out how to beat it, play the deck. Because the one way you're going to figure out, you're going to lose with that deck, and you'll be like, oh, that's how I lose, that's how they lose, and then oh, that's how I'm going to beat them. So play the decks that you're having hard times with, and it's good to play. I mean, some people, like all the hunter mains we have that pop up on the show, play one class, and that's fine. But if you play other classes and you play other decks, then you're going to get more now. Even if it's not your jam, you get more knowledge of how to beat them, how they work, and then you just have more knowledge on how to pressure them. And the other thing I would say that we mentioned is don't try to change the world at once. This is what happens when you try to fix like your golf swing. And I'm horrible at golf, but like don't try to fix your stance, fix your grip, fix your follow through, fix your the way fix one thing and then get that right, and then okay, you'll see improvements from there, and then focus on the next thing, one thing at a time. Otherwise, if you change too many variables at once, you won't know what's working, what's not. You'll break something else, and it just gets frustrating.
I blame whatever creative design team works on the hero skins, because why am I going to leave Hunter when I could be Sylvanas and Nathanos? I have no point to play anything else. But I should play the Death Knight Leech deck that keeps annihilating me in 3 turns that I can't figure out how to beat. Because good God, if I die to that one more time, I'm gonna lose my mind.
I believe I listening to the VS report this week that's on the decline, so that might make you happy. And in regards to but the bet has been changing, so it could be bad today and good tomorrow. But in regards to your hey, I only want to play Hunter because I have only the skins for that. I believe you can play Karrigan in multiple classes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, she's what got me to play Death Knight. Because I was like, well, I bought the fancy Karrigan, so I can play Death Knight and be the pretty lady.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Hand buff Death Knight is very fun for hitting people in the face with large minions also.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, that's one of those things where, if you can play multiple decks, you start to learn those things. I've never figured out how to beat a deck quicker than when I go 0-5 with this deck I couldn't beat for the last hour. I'm like, this is destroying me constantly. What is this deck? And then I go 0-5. I'm like, that's how it loses. I understand now. Or sometimes you go 10-0 and you figure out, oh, this is getting nerfed next week. It's okay. So it happens both ways. But the more that you do that, then the more you can also start to look at some of that matchup knowledge, and you start to figure out why some of these decks normally counter other types of decks. You start to see, oh, these are the general control decks, and this is why they're beating aggro. These are your combo or burn style decks, and this is why they're beating these control decks. And you start to kind of figure that out, and then you're able to relate your own experiences to what you see other people saying. Or if you're someone who looks at matchup data on some of the websites, you see why it's like that. This is also another spot where I feel like YouTube content especially is helpful. Going to streams and watching people play in time and explain their plays in time is great. But if you have a limited time and you're trying to figure out, I want to learn this deck, a lot of content creators will put out a deck guide. They'll give a 5 to 10 minute summary. This is what you're looking for. This is the general play style, and hopefully then give you a couple of games that help demonstrate it. And that takes some of that learning curve if you're someone who's trying to learn it and also not spend 10 to 15 games stumbling through it at the same time as well. So use those resources, to your advantage as well.
I'll have to do that because I really want to learn how to play Warrior. Because Warrior always looks like fun. But it's also what I main in World of Warcraft, so I'm like, I feel like I should be actually learning how to play this in Hearthstone too, because I already like this play style in one iteration. I should learn how to play it in this other iteration, but every time, for some reason, whatever decks I build are just terrible. And I'm like, alright. Or I do the pre-made decks, but I'm missing some key card, and then I break my deck, and I'm like, well, back to Hunter I go, where my comfort zone is.
Warrior has always been my hardest class to build something with. I don't know why. It's just a class that if I tried to build a deck, no matter if it's a aggressive or control warrior, it does not make sense. I had to copy and paste. I had to find someone else's work to use. It doesn't work for me other than Tavern Brawls, apparently, because I've had success in the pre-release brawl with it.
It's because they print cards like Black Rock and Roll, and you can't take your eyes
That
off
was
it.
you.
It's like, oh yeah, me. Never mind.
For me, it was the Menagerie cards. I tried to make Menagerie Warrior work so many expansions in a row before they all rotated this year.
And now you get some Menagerie support cards that could have helped out, like the Jugs.
Mm-hmm. I tried to make it again. It didn't go well. So that was the tempo with 3 question mark decks that I sent you, and then have not played since.
Yeah, this is how deck building goes. Pylet sends me a deck, says, hey, I'm 3-0 with it. And then I play it, and I'm like, hey, I'm 3-0 with it. And then he's like, yeah, now I've lost my last 5 games. And then by the end of the night, we're like a combined 5-38. And we're like, what happened?
Yep, pretty much. That's the Pylet program.
I don't know if it's because of time zones. I find I play better during the day, but if I'm playing at night, I constantly get my butt kicked. I don't know if it's because time zones, so I'm playing a different region, and they're just goated and I'm an idiot. Or if
you're not an idiot, so that we can rule that out. The It's sometimes I think there are like I feel the same way too. Sometimes I play like on like a Sunday morning and I feel like I play much better on a Sunday morning than I do on like a Tuesday night. But I think that depending where your MMR is and whatnot, I feel like maybe sometimes there are certain times during the day where people play more games and you might run into tougher competition and all that. And that's just
Mm.
that's just a conspiracy theory. But it feels right because like yeah, sometimes it's just you just hit that groove and like why am I doing so well? It's like well it's Sunday afternoon, so maybe everyone else
Mhm.
is like rating or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's got to be a logical reasoning for it. There has to be.
If you find it, let us know because I have not found it yet either.
I
It is a
will.
game. One of my point segueing into it of important things to remember is the nature of the game creates a yo-yo effect sometimes. A couple weeks ago, when Warshak was on, we were talking about it to where we were all very streaky that week of the expansion to where it's like, yeah, I won 5, I'm doing great, and then you lose 7, your next 7 games. And sometimes that just happens. There's swings both ways. And just because you're losing more doesn't always mean that you're regressing, and you have to kind of figure out what's causing it. And sometimes it's not something related to the game. If you're busy, if you worked 14 hours and decide that you're going to decompress with some Hearthstone and you lose 5 games, you're tired, you're not focused. It probably wasn't the best decompression method. Not that I've ever done that the past 2 weeks at all. But find those things that you can relate with, because that is something that happens with this game quite a bit, because it's not a mindless game unless you're intentionally playing it that way. If you're someone who is listening to this podcast, you're probably not playing it that way. You're probably wanting to focus on your plays. And if you're trying to play while you're tired or real life stress is going on, normally that shows up in game too.
Yeah, if your
Mhm.
boss was yelling at you during the day, and then you're kind of upset about that, and you log in, and then the first game you play, someone hits you, you have them down to 1 health, and they kill you from 30. Then that's just gonna tilt you. Everyone's prone to tilt. So we've had multiple episodes on that, and we'll talk about that again sometime in the future. So all these topics we're kind of glossing over on a high level here. We'll
Mm-hmm.
we either will or we have, and we will again break down all these into smaller chunks and really dive into them.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so those are kind of the big points that I had to discuss today. If either of you two have anything else you want to add in.
yeah, well, Pilot, that was a lot.
I think that was a great overview.
I think we have room for dessert, though. What do you think?
Yeah.
I got the right transition this time. So, Kira, we have one last interview question for you. What is your favorite dessert?
So, interesting thing about me, I have a dairy allergy. So, I have not had a lot of desserts in my life. However, one of my close friends found an entirely vegan bakery that you can't tell that their food is all vegan. And I had tiramisu for the first time, and I'm obsessed. I don't know where tiramisu has been all my life. I don't know how vegan tiramisu lives up to normal tiramisu, but my vegan tiramisu is delicious. And I'm sad that if I want to go get it, it's a 2-hour drive to Orlando. Which is probably a good thing, so I'm not eating tiramisu every day. But like, I'm obsessed now. It's delicious.
Honestly, well, I will agree. Tiramisu is probably my favorite dessert as well, just non-vegan. And I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's okay. But the tiramisu is just, ugh, it's so good. Well, listener, you're here. You like us because you're listening. I'm assuming you like us, or maybe you lost the bet and you have to listen. I don't know, but if you like us,
We'll take it
come
either
back.
way.
We'll take it either way. Give us a review. If it's 5 stars, it helps people find the show. There's a lot of podcasts out there in Hearthstone, although the number seems to dwindle from here and there. You want people to find us so we can grow. We can have more people. The thing I care about most is we have amazing guests like Kira, and the more people that we can get to hear them, the better. So we'd appreciate that. Kira, where can people find you on social media?
If you want unhinged content, you can find me on Twitter and TikTok at Dark Lady Cosplay. And if you want professional content, my Instagram at Dark Lady Cosplay.
How about yourself?
You can mainly find me on Discord, Pylet712. That's Pylet. In the bread and butter Discord or other various Hearthstone Discords. Also find me on Twitter, but I don't check that nearly as much.
And you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, and just about anywhere else at Tito Santana HS, and obviously on Discord as well. Kira, do you have anything you'd like to promote or shout out this week?
Sally Whitemane photo shoot coming next week, so keep
All right,
your eyes peeled.
fantastic.
It's been almost 2.5 years in the making. Woo!
Awesome. How about yourself, Pylet?
I want to give a shout out to World 8, who has been a regular guest on this podcast. By the look on Tito's face, I think I took his shout out, which is why I'm glad that I went first, because if not, I would have had to think a lot harder. But he is now the new co-host on the Vicious Syndicate podcast. Very well earned. Listen to that this weekend if you have not. But shout out to him. So perfect fit for that job.
Mine is not a shout out. Mine is a request. I'm going to request to Blizzlet to give me the hour and 10 minutes back from this week's episode that I spent listening to it, because it was probably the most unhinged it's been in a while. So can I please have that time back? I will put in the receipts, but But anyway, guys, I think we're toast. We'll see you.
Bye.
Slide two brothers meet one another when they slide up to the mic. It's bread and butter with one another. Let's start up that recording light.